Hi, this is Bill Monty, and thank you for once again tuning in to an episode of Bill Monty's Guide for Getting Older. I'm so happy that you hit that play button, and we have a very special episode today. In the last episode that I put out, I asked for people to contact me to tell their stories. I don't want to recap it all. Go back and listen to the episode if you want to hear it. But I think I've been telling my story for 40 episodes, my thoughts about the journey of getting older. I've had several people respond, but the first one to reach out, his name is Harold, and I'm so excited for you to meet him and have him be actually our first interview on Bill Monty's Guide for Getting Older. So hello, Harold.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am absolutely fantastic, and I'm so happy to be the first at anything.
As I've said before, the podcast is not about getting old. It's about getting older. So anyone, hopefully, that's listening is still getting older, but they can be in their 30s, 40s, 50s without saying your age if you don't want to. What era did you grow up in?
Well, let's put it this way. When I was born, Truman was the president.
Okay.
So that sort of gets you.
Yeah.
Well, there were only 48 states.
Harry Truman, by the way, my favorite president. I love Harry
Yeah.
Truman.
I was born
Wasn't that,
19. Yeah, I was born 1951, so I'm 73 years old.
where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York. And
Okay.
I was born in Brooklyn, and I lived there until adulthood. Then I went away to college and moved around. But most of my life has been in the Northeast, either New York or New Jersey.
Okay. And you live in New Jersey now, or?
Yeah, I'm in New Jersey now. I'm in Teaneck, New Jersey, which is just outside of Manhattan.
How often do you get into the city?
I really try to get there as little as possible because, as I've gotten older, the crowds in New York City it's very tough to maneuver. I mean, the traffic, and it's a very expensive city just to even visit. They've just implemented a congestion pricing. So it's almost $20 just to go over the bridge. And if you want to park in Manhattan, it could cost you, I have paid up to $75 to park. So just an expensive endeavor. And that's before you've even gone out to dinner or gone to see a play. So to answer your question, I go there as little as possible.
You find your cultural activity in Teaneck, New Jersey.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of an introvert, so I don't really have a need for a lot of external excitement. So yeah, I'm watching YouTube videos and local theater. I don't think I mentioned you, but my wife has taken on acting as her second act, so to speak. So she's a member of a couple of the local acting groups here in neighboring towns. So we'll get a little bit of that. I mean, I do go into the city once in a while. If something really great is happening, I'll go in and watch something.
So I'm curious, when because this actually is, I think of it as for myself, kind of an odd thing that has happened that I've started watching YouTube as a main form of entertainment. You say you like to watch YouTube videos. How long have you been watching YouTube videos?
I'm going to say well, before COVID. So that's what, 2019,
Yeah.
2020. Yeah. Really during COVID, it really picked up. I know it sounds strange that, you watch YouTube videos. Last night, my wife and I went to visit one of our kids, and they had friends over, and they're all talking about TV shows. I know none of them, absolutely none. And yeah, my wife said, yeah, you notice how quiet Harold is because all he watches is YouTube videos.
I remember when I first became aware that people were watching YouTube as a major form of entertainment, or instead of watching the big three networks, whatever it might
Hmm.
be, we were visiting my daughter in Orlando, and we were going to go out somewhere, and they had the TV on, and it was watching this woman kind of just live her life on TV.
Right.
And I'm like, can we watch something, change it to a ball game, or, why do you watch this? And I could not wrap my head around this whole idea of YouTube. And now
Right.
I have to say, my wife and I, we're watching always right before we go to bed, we flip over to YouTube if we haven't already been watching it all night,
Right.
just to kind of visit some of these people that we watch them live their lives on TV. It's the most bizarre thing, but it really is fun. Growing up in Brooklyn, because I, on this podcast and on my other podcast, Tales from South Florida, I talk about growing up in South Florida. So growing up in Brooklyn and the time that you did, what's your favorite childhood memory of those years?
Playing. I mean, it was just I'm an only child, and we had lived in a brownstone, a small apartment. So you wanted to be outside all the time. What was so cool about growing up in neighborhoods like Brooklyn, I guess in any inner city neighborhood, every block had hundreds of kids. So you didn't have to ever leave your block to, to have a game, whether it be a game of stickball, a game of punch ball, stoop ball, anything with a ball we played. Or then there were flying kites, or I mean, it it was that was my favorite memory. It was just, just fun. Just to go outside, and you didn't have to go very far. Literally, you could walk out of your door, walk down the steps to the street, and you find a bunch of kids, and there was the younger guys on one corner, and the other guys on the other corner. The girls would be by themselves, and so you came home, did your homework, but took off your school clothes, put on your play clothes, did your homework, and then went out and played until, as they said, until the street lights came on. And then, you came in the house. In the summertime, you played all the time.
Yeah.
It was play all the time. So, yeah, that's really my fondest memory about Brooklyn and growing up.
As you have gone through life, what have you learned about yourself in
Oh,
in this journey of getting older?
wow. I've learned, well, looking back, I realized how much of an ego I had and how much I got caught up into some of the, you know, paying more attention to things that really didn't matter that much. Things like status, you know. I remember wanting to have fancy cars that cost more than really I should have been spending. But in hindsight, I said, I could have bought car A and instead I bought car B, and and had huge payments and huge insurance. But the status at the time was important to me. Now I recognize, those things really weren't that important. Also, I think I've become a lot less selfish in general. And I don't know, I guess that's maybe natural. You realize because when you're going through your 20s and 30s, it's all about me. It's all about me. And as I've gotten older, it's like, wow, that's the less selfish you become, it seems your life becomes more real, more more giving.
I agree. I feel more grounded now than I did when I was younger, in
Right.
a way,
Hmm.
but there's still that anticipation of the unknown of tomorrow, of what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
And I think for me, it used to be, I think I took tomorrow for granted.
Hmm.
And I think youth does that. And I don't take it for granted anymore. I now know how fragile life is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as people in our age group always say, you got more years behind us than we have in front of us. When you hit your mid 70s, you figure, okay, if I'm lucky, if I'm really, really, really lucky, maybe I'll have another 20 years more. But even if I have 20 years, are those going to be good years? Will I be healthy? Will I be able to get around on my own? Will I be able, so I take, I really want to take advantage of every single day, and make sure that I maximize every minute because, time is our most important commodity and I can't waste it because I can't get any more time.
I was watching CBS Sunday Morning this morning,
Mhm.
and
Great
they
show.
had a story about a man named Linwood Riddick. Now, I don't know if you heard, he was in the news this week.
Mm.
And Mr. Riddick is 79 years old, and he graduated from the University of South Carolina with a bachelor's degree.
Oh, I think I saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he did it. Now, so I saw it on the news for a couple nights, and I thought, well, that's great. You often hear a story of people who are older that go back to college and they graduate.
Hmm.
But they talked about the reason that he did it. And it was because he stumbled upon, while on the campus one day just visiting, the story of three young men who were killed in the 1960s in some of the riots fighting
Hmm.
for civil rights. He wanted to finish what they couldn't, and he did it for
Wow.
them. And
Wow.
it got me thinking about. I know you've heard me on the podcast talking about legacy,
Hmm.
and what he did kind of completed their legacy for them in a way, and also set his. What would you like your legacy to be?
Wow. What would I like my legacy to be? That's I don't know if I've ever thought about that. I have grandchildren now. I guess I would like to leave a legacy of recognizing that you have the ability to accomplish whatever you really set your mind to. Our society tends to want to place us in certain categories. You can fall victim to it. I mean, you turn on the television and you watch it, and it basically says if you look like this is what you can do. You can be an athlete, you could be a performer, you can be this, you can be that. And I would like to people to think, well, Grandpa said we could do anything. We could do this, whatever we choose. And yeah, I guess that's it. I mean, I know that sounds kind of clumsy. I never thought about what my legacy was. You know, I would hope that somebody thinks about me after I'm gone. You know, I think about my relatives. I mean, I didn't know any of my grandparents. I don't know much of their history. Fortunately, through ancestry, I've been sort of recreating a family tree so I could go back, you know, well, unfortunately, most African Americans can't go back but 300 years because, the records are not there. You don't know what slave ships they came over on. But I could get back to the middle 1800s. So, and I look at these people and I look at these names, and that's all they are to me. They're just names. But I look at them and say, wow, what would they think if they could see me now? They were, you know, because of them, I am. And I guess maybe that's what I would like my kids to think and grandchildren and all of the generations after me, you know.
Hey, I've often thought of I just haven't pulled the trigger on that yet of doing like ancestry.com. And by the way, I have no relationship with them, but don't get any money from them. Ancestry.com, and haven't done it yet because I have this brief idea of immediate history, but I don't know beyond that. And
Mm,
my wife and I have teased that maybe we should just have our daughter do it. That way we can get all histories
right, right.
combined.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a great idea. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it really helped me, like I said, because actually someone had started it. It was like a distant cousin, and she had contacted me several years ago, and got me interested, and then we started building it and building it. So now, look, it's interesting. I mean, my father's from the Caribbean, so it was pretty easy on that side. Like I said, but it stopped about 18. I think we got back to 1850, I think, and that was where the line sort of just. I mean, I guess if I had, the resources, I could probably hire a genealogist and get back further. But 1850 is good enough for me.
I often get caught up in thinking about the history, and I think what you said before was great. All of these people came together to make me,
Right.
so everything that they did, they went through, and everything else, I'm here. And for me and my brother, we are the last of our family. There are no cousins. So whatever history our family has lives in our heads.
Right.
And, so I often think about, I want to try to leave it so that people will know our story when we're not here to tell it anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, it's important that your story be told. I mean, I think it's important that each of our stories be told and that we do the telling because if we don't tell it, it will be told differently than it should have been told.
Yeah, it's something that kind of isn't happening that much anymore. I remember my mother used to tell me stories all the time of when she was growing up, and my grandmothers would tell stories, but I don't see that happening much anymore, that connection between generations of understanding what one went through versus
Yeah,
the other. Is that something you've noticed?
definitely, yes. Definitely it started. again, and I can only speak to African American culture because, obviously that's what I know most of. My parents were born in the turn of the 20th century. So you can imagine either their parents or their grandparents were probably born into slavery. They were very reluctant to talk about their past. Uh, and so when you would ask about who's grandpa, who's grandma, he was a man. That's all you need to know. Why do you need to know more than that? And we sort of started off with, very limited idea of who we were. I guess, I don't know. We just well, don't talk much about it. We don't tell our kids much. I mean, I think my wife and I did a little impromptu survey asking our grandkids, "Do you know what your mother does for a living?" No. No. You know what dad does? No. You know where he grew up? I think he grew up, in this city. I mean, barely. Yeah. So to your point, we're doing the same thing. We're not passing down our legacy to our
Right.
kids.
So you're retired, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How are you enjoying retirement?
Oh, let's put it this way. The other day, somebody said, "Oh, we had a 3-day weekend," and I'm like, "Oh, what do you mean 3 day? Oh, it's a holiday on Monday." Okay, yeah. Like I didn't know it. The days all, Saturday is no different from Tuesday, is no different from Thursday, other than the pills on the box. I have a pill box. I know that on Saturday I take these pills, and on Tuesday I take the. But other than that, no. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's what you work for. That's what I tell my kids and now my grandkids. I said, this retirement is what you work for. Most of your life is dictated by somebody else. When you're 1 through 18, your parents are telling you what to do. And then after that, your boss is telling you what to do, what time to get up and what time to go to leave, where to go. And now it's time for me to make my own calls, my own decisions.
So did you start doing any activities, things you hadn't done before
Oh,
retirement
oh
that,
gosh. Okay. Well, I've always been pretty athletic. So one of the things I did has uh, I participated in triathlon. So, running, cycling, and swimming, which was cool. I mean, I did marathon. I did a marathon, half marathons. So running was part of the activities. But right now I'm doing a lot of photography and videography. And you had asked earlier about legacy. I'm working on a short film. This is my first. So, and it's as but most of my project, they take forever to get off the drawing board. I wanted to interview people of color of really 80s and 90s year olds and get their stories because to your point of earlier, our stories are not being handed down to the next generation. So I thought it would be a good idea to get a couple of people in this age group and just find out what their stories are. Because if we don't tell the story, someone else will tell it. They usually tell it incorrectly. So I want to make sure that while we have these people still with us, we could hear what the story was from them. So that's one of my projects. I attended a class at the Wine Institute. It was a sommelier's class. I mean, I had no intention to become a sommelier, but I just wanted to be able to understand the differences in wines. Different regions, different grapes, different varietals.
well, what I love about everything you're talking about right here is that for a lot of people, the thought of retirement is almost an end to their story. And you have started entire new chapters of your life during your retirement, finding new interests, maybe things that didn't interest you as a younger man, but things that now you're like, well, I never thought about this. Now I've got some time. Now I can find out what is the story behind this? What is the story behind wine?
Right, right. My wife and I are working on a podcast, and the name of it is "You Still Have Time." And the goal of that podcast is to sort of eliminate or at least mitigate the fears of getting older. People think that getting older is, well, one step closer to death, but there's so much to do And we want to inspire people, encourage people to take advantage of these years. I mean, it's you still have time to do whatever your dream is. Or it could be something you had never thought of, as you said it before. You may never even thought about it, but say, hey, I have time to do this now. So yeah, I'm going to make use of every minute of every hour, every day I have left. Keep living. As my wife's father used to tell her, keep living.
Yeah, and you still have time. That's a great name for a podcast, by the way. And I would love, I can't, you guys need to work with this because I would love to hear your podcast and hear what you have to talk about and what to
Yeah.
say because I think that would be fantastic. And there aren't that many of us talking to an older audience
No, well, you don't.
and
That's how I
setting up.
found you. That's how I found your podcast in search of somebody talking to an older audience. I mean, podcasts are talking about how to make more money or how to, get a better job or how to raise your family. But once all that stuff is behind you, now what?
And
Yeah.
I think that's the message that we have to get out. I think people have there are so many different views of getting older, and that's because there are so many ways to get older. I get that. I understand that. But I wish people kind of had more of your curiosity and your drive to do it that way because I think I often hear people say that they retired and after 3 months they're bored and don't know what to do with themselves.
Well, when I hear somebody say they're bored, I'm just flabbergasted. How can you be bored? I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so many things to do.
That's how I think about it. And I would, I would love to retire someday. I don't know when that day will be, but and I don't believe I'll be bored. I think I'll rest for about 6 months and then I'll try to probably start working on things, probably another podcast or two.
Well, one of the things my wife and I was talking about just this morning is about there are people who stay working, until their 80s, until their 90s, but you bring something different to the table when you're 70 or 60, 70, or 80 than you did when you were 30. So whatever you would do, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, physician, music, whatever, you approached that task differently as you've gotten older because you've acquired so much wisdom, and it's not the same. Even though it might be the same title, it's not the same. You're doing it differently.
Yeah, that's so true. If you had the opportunity to go back and talk to younger Harold, what would you tell him? What advice would you give him?
Be more open to new things. I found early in life that I didn't need anybody else to throw obstacles in my path because I threw them there myself. I put roadblocks in my own path because, well, I can't apply to this college because my grades are not good enough. I can't apply to that job because I don't, they would never hire somebody who looked like me. I can't. I would say to the young Harold, stop doing that. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. Make a try. At least you could say, well, if you didn't get it, you didn't get it because you put the obstacle there. You didn't get it because, maybe they didn't hire you or, but or they didn't accept you to this program, but not because you didn't even apply.
Yeah, it's great advice. Anyone who's younger that might be listening to this, yeah, go ahead and think about what was just said because you can do it and don't allow anyone to tell you that you can't, especially yourself.
Right. Oh gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you'll believe it when you tell yourself that. Uh, I can't tell you how many times, yeah, to your point, when I was younger, that I thought, well, I should do this, but then I didn't do it because
Right.
I thought, well, that's beyond my capability, what I can do. We had been talking right before we started recording here, and we both really enjoyed the show Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton. For those who never watched it, he used to interview Broadway stars, movie stars, television stars, famous people, and he ended the show every time with questions based on the French journalist Bernard Pivot, or as he said, Bernard Pivot. So I'd like to wrap up our conversation here and ask you just a couple of these questions. If you were to be reincarnated as an animal, what would it be?
Oh wow. What would it be? I would say a whale. Well, because you don't have to worry about predators. except for man.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about predators. And it just, when I see them, they just look so majestic.
Have you ever been on a whale watch? Are we
Yes,
gonna?
yes,
Yes, I.
yes. Yeah, done it. Actually, not very far from New York City. We can go out and so I forget it. I think it's I forget the body of water. It's just not far from where the Statue of Liberty is. And certain times of years, you could actually see whales there.
Well, yeah, we went out a few times out in Maine. It was, if you've never done that, you should, because if you've been to places like SeaWorld or places like that, and you think you have seen a killer whale, and you know what it's like to see these magnificent mammals. If
Yeah,
I say animals, I won't say they're not
yeah, but
animals, they're
mammals,
mammals.
yeah, mammals, but
Magnificent
close.
mammals in their natural habitat, doing what they do. It takes your breath away.
It does. It absolutely makes you see how small you are.
If heaven exists, as you enter the pearly gates, what would you like to hear God say to you?
You did a great job.
Yeah. And I'm not God, but I'm going to say to you, Harold, you did a great job today.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. Is there anything you would like to wrap up with that we didn't talk about today that you would like people to consider about the journey of aging, about getting older?
I, I would just say, do, don't fear it. I mean, even though your sight might not be as great as it used to be, your sense of smell might not be as great as it used to be. You may not walk as fast, you might not be as strong, but that's okay. That's okay. That just goes along with aging. Just, hey, we're all there and, enjoy it.
I agree. Enjoy the journey, folks, because it's not over until it's over. And you got a lot of life still to live.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being a part of this first interview session for Bill Monty's Guide for Getting Older. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you, Harold.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to run my mouth for whatever amount of time we've been talking. No, my wife doesn't have to hear it now.
Well, I hope we'll continue talking, even if it's not to record for
Okay,
this, because I think you're a genuinely nice man, and I really enjoyed speaking with you.
great. I love listening to you too.
All right. Okay, thanks for sticking around, hearing the entire interview. We're at the end of the episode now, but I just wanted to say, first, a big thank you to Harold. He's not someone who's used to being out there being interviewed or being on a podcast, so it was just great to speak with him. If you would like to participate and be interviewed for Bill Monty's Guide for Getting Older, it doesn't matter how old you are. We're just looking for people who want to talk about the journey and the experience of aging. Please write to me at billmonty04@gmail.com. That's billmonty04@gmail.com. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that follow or subscribe button. Leave us a rating, too, because that would be fantastic. Comment, share it with your friends and family. I hope you had a great time here. I know I did, and I'm looking forward to doing it again. Until the next time that we speak, my friends, I remind you, as always, please be safe and be kind. Oh, where's that theme music?
If it's warm outside but you're feeling colder, not sure what to do without a friendly shoulder, you're not alone, so start feeling bolder. Welcome to Bill Monty's Guide for Getting Older.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.